Hi, I'm Mr. Miyagi and this is Mr. Miyagi's Workshop. Well, today we're going to try to save this old CB360 tank. It's in pretty rough shape. There's actually even a hole back in here, and there's several along up in here, and I believe that there's one right in here. But right now I'm stripping all the paint off of it, and I'm going to get it to hopefully down to bare metal. That's my big deal right now. I've knocked out a lot of the rust posits inside. I put soapy water and nuts and bolts in there and plugged up all the kind of the leak spots and rattled it around in there. Now we're going to coat the inside of this tank, and we're going to use this product right here, this KBS, and I'll get it all cleaned up on the inside and stuff. But right now I'm focusing on the outside because I want to have that before I actually do the interior. So, like I always say, let's get to it. Now, yeah, I cheated a little bit. I used this big old wire wheel. Seemed to work fairly well. I'm going to apply. I applied some more of the paint stripper on there. I don't know which is the best kind. I can't find any really good stuff like I used to in the past because of the EPA has banned a lot of the good chemicals for stripping. But anyway. We'll see how this works out. I was able to get down into bare, but you can see in a lot of areas there's pinholes. Now I have another product coming that we will plug all of those. And right now I got to let this sit for at least 15 minutes, maybe even more, to see if it'll start taking up this, taking the red and orange off there. So I'll be back. Okay, well, I didn't show the whole process, but I basically used, what I ended up doing is I did most of the work with this wire wheel and got it pretty dang clean. But you can see a lot of I got holes up in here, and look at that side there. Like I was saying, see this whole section right, oops, sorry. See that whole section in there is all screwed up. So these emblem tags on here, these mounts, I'm going to try taking these off and getting in there and cleaning out everything. Like I said, we're going to try out a new product. This one's not too bad, but I can see some rust and everything behind there, and I just want to make sure that everything is good and sealed. So this ought to be a pretty decent project. And then on the inside here, right down right there, there's another hole. Oh yeah, I'll clean out the inside again. I don't know if you can see that or not, but if you turn this at the right angle, you can actually see all the light going through down in there. So anyway, it's pretty rusty. Why not try saving it? Everybody seems to want a fortune for one of these. So I got the tank badge mounts off. Yeah, that one went a little deep, but I'll straighten these all out. You see that one there was pretty rust. This was rusted in here really bad. There's a weep hole up in there. So, gotta clean it. Can we save it? I mean, it's on this side and the back, and there's a couple of pinholes on the inside here. Well, I've been using this product right here to clean it out. This KBS tank sealer. It's got a cleaner in there, which I ended up cleaning out the tank and then putting in the rust inhibitor. And before I can get any further than that to put the tank sealant in, I get to use some of this KBS New Steel putty there. It's supposed to be epoxy putty. It's supposed to be really good for sealing up those holes. Now, I was going to attempt to do some leading on there, but I'm really questionable how thin that metal and everything is. So I'm going to use the epoxy, and we're going to see how that works. So I've got some of that, I've got this stuff, the two pieces. It's a two-part. I've got it out heating up in the sun right now, so it'll apply either. So what we'll do is we'll move over to the workbench, and let's see if we can't fix this old tank. So, like I always say, let's get to it. Now, one of the things I did when I was trying to clean the rust out of the inside of the tank is I used soap and water, and I didn't realize that the KBS comes with actually with a cleaner and stuff, but I just used regular soap and water, and I threw in a bunch of nuts and bolts in there, counted them to make sure that I got the same amount out, and then beat it around, taped off everything, and or you could even put you know, like a plug or something in there, which I will do later, and plugged off stuff and then rolled it around, and this developed. A lot more holes showed up, but I was able to get the old I believe there was some fuel in there, residual, but after 20 some odd years I doubt if there was that much in there. But it did take out a lot of the rust and everything, and it kind of cleaned up the inside fairly well. Then I dumped in this rust blaster, which works really well. I'd let it sit probably a couple hours because the tank was really rough, and that worked it. And then I flushed it out, and then I aired it out. I dried it and stuff. And basically what I did is I just used my heat gun, set it up so that it blew into the tank and dried out the inside of the tank itself. And I made sure that all these holes, these that are in here, were clean. Now there's some that are a little bit stored. I may have to go back and grab those a little bit. And even on the side where the badges were at were pretty rusted. So I wiped all this area down. Now that I've got this all cleaned up, I wiped it down with acetone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get my my new metal epoxy putty, and I'm going to mix it together. And like I said, it's a two-part, and then we will apply it to the tank and see how well it works. All right, and then they said to work it for about 2 minutes to blend this together. So when 2 minutes is up, I will be back. All right, so I've worked it, and I hope I've blended well enough. So I'm going to smear it on the areas where worst holes and everything are. And we'll try to smooth this out. And I actually dented these in a little bit so that there'd be kind of a crater. And I'm hoping that I can be able to sand this out a little bit. Seems to be sticking quite well. And I'm kind of pushing it into those holes. And they said I have about 15 minutes to play with this. So we'll see how this goes. And you're probably wondering why I'm trying to save this tank. Well, trying to find another CB tank, CB360 tank, has not been easy. And the ones that I have found, I don't think they're any better shape than what this one was in. Maybe a little better, but not much. I just went out and got my hands wetted a little bit to see if this can smooth this out a little more. I don't know if this is the proper way of doing it, but this is the way I'm doing it. Okay, well, that's the system. I'm going to finish up the rest of the tank. So it actually seems to work quite well. I'm going to try and fill in these dents here a little bit with it, so I don't have to use as much Bondo. The smaller the proportion that you do to mix, I find it a lot easier. I did a smaller batch here and it seems to mix pretty well. I've got a nice ding in here. And we'll just see if this stuff really does what it says it's supposed to. Tell you the truth, I could have probably bought an aftermarket tank, but I didn't want to spend that much money on something that's going to be used more or less off-road. And we'll see how well this holds up. I may want to pack some of this sealant with me just in case I get a leak or two or three. Like I said, I was going to maybe try leading this, but I haven't done any leading since I worked on my old GMC panel, and that's been several years ago. And it's one of those things you need to practice to do it right. And we'll see how this works out. All right. So they also say for storing this, to wrap it back up in its package and to put it inside of a Ziploc baggie away from any air or such. Looks like I may end up having to get a bigger baggie. Well, if it works like it's supposed to, this will be a great save for this tank. I'm not going to put the sealant in there until I can see how this thing is going to set, and I'll sand it out. Now, here's steel hard in about 12 hours. So I'll probably let this sit overnight. I've got the tank covered in Bondo in a lot of spots. And I went on a little heavy and kicked off of me a little fast up here. But I think it'll sand out quite nicely. I was able to fill in with the new metal from KBS, and it seemed to work quite well. I wish I could show you down inside there, but before I put the sealer in, I wanted to get most of the sanding done because that tends to heat up the surface of the metal. So I wanted to get most of that done, and then either tonight or tomorrow I'll put the sealant in and mix it all up inside there, and hopefully we've saved this tank. So I got it sanded out fairly well. Now I need to put on some primer, And I'm going to use some of this etching primer that I have kicking around. Yeah, it's rattle can. I'm not a professional painter, so, and this is going off-road more than anything else, so it doesn't have to be a pretty job, although it would be nice if it was. So I've got the primer, just finished shooting the primer on. This is the black etching primer, and then I do have some filler primer, sanding filler primer that I'll use later on, but I want this to kick off and dry so I can sand this out and kind of get everything going. But you know, from what it used to look like to now, I think it's turning out pretty good. It's late in the evening here, and I'm coating the inside of the tank with sealant. It's coating it pretty well. That inside was pretty rusty. So I'm setting it up right now to drain out. And then we're going to have to let this tank kind of cure for about the next 96 hours. That's what they say. I'm going to let it go that long before I put fuel in it. So this is where I'm at with the tank. I've got the inside sealed. I don't know if you can make that out down in there. Really good lighting there. But I hope it turns out okay. It should. Even if it doesn't, this thing's going to be off-road more than anything else. Yeah, well, you know, there's still a few little dents and crap in it, but final coat's on it. I never claimed to be a painter. But like I've said in the past, this thing doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to keep gas in it so I can roll down the back trails. What I've got going on here is a little muffin fan that I've got set on the tank to suck out all the fumes from the sealant that we put in there, the tank sealer. And it seems to be working pretty good. I just got it set up on a little battery with a little charger, and it's been running overnight and such on it. So tomorrow I should be able to put fuel in this because it has been over the 96 hours that you're supposed to let these tanks sit. And hopefully we have no leaks. But what I've gotten done on the bike is, I've got a little tag on there, but I got the badges and the pinstriping and this little underguard right here. All I used is Stickum door trim stuff on there, and I think it looks okay. I like the badges. These are just stick-on ones, cheap ones that I got off of the internet. I got the seat mounted. You tapped into the frame here, and then on the front I just made a little plunger that goes up into the stock brace. So yeah, that worked out pretty well. And I've had a couple people ask me on the other video why I went back to the dual carbs. Right now I just want to get the bike running and running good and broke in, and then we're going to experiment with that 2-in-1 carburetor manifold, and just to see what it would take to set this thing up for a single carb, because you know, in the past it's been tough to find good carbs. Englishman had a friend that had a set on the shelf. It's been sitting there for quite some time, so they weren't in all that bad a shape. They actually worked pretty good. I did a little clean up, put some fairly new jets and stuff in it. I've got a total rebuild kit for them that I will go through them on. But right now, I just want to get this engine broke in and get some miles on it. And like I said, we will go back and revisit the single carb setup. Well, tank's back on, tank's sealed after it was more than 96 hours. I'm happy with it. I haven't found any leaks yet. We'll see how this goes on. but it's up and running again after 20 some odd years of not. Leaned up against a fence underneath of a tree is where we found this. So now I got to do is I got to get some miles on this, and we can go have some fun with it, I'm hoping. So anyway, as always, if there's any comments or questions, you can put them in the comment section below, or you can send them to my email address at tmiyagi@hotmail.com. And if you've liked this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget that ringy-dingy button over there for the next episode coming up. So this is Mr. Miyagi saying, you be safe out there. Hope to see you on the road. Ciao.